www.rfr.org.
Okay, here we are for a Wednesday Metro show, the Rockland Metro show, and we welcome everyone who is joining us either by radio or on TV, Main Coast TV.
Maincoast.tv.
Yes.
You got to remember that.
And you can stream us actually on the radio.
Yeah, you go to wrfr.org and you click on a little thing, and if it's working, you'll be able to listen on your computer.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
usually it works, but not always.
And I'm your host, Steve Carroll, and my co-host is with me, Joe.
I'm always forgetting my name. It's Joe Steinberger. No.
Yeah.
I forget other people's names, but I still remember my name.
You know, it's that kind of administration.
Yeah, that's it.
You know.
All right, well, aging out here.
Anyway.
But delighted to be here.
And for those watching on TV, they'll see two other people.
Yes.
Here sitting in the chairs. And
do they know who they are?
Well, they do, because their faces are very common and
common faces.
Common. People that we've seen all the time. Yes. From the man who's not paying attention. That's because he's in his lame duck.
Exactly.
He doesn't have to worry.
No, I was trying to pull up the Main Coast TV because you said we're on TV, and I wanted to see myself.
Oh, well, just
there's
look
no
right
mirrors.
over there.
Yeah, but
wow.
you get feedback that way.
Right.
I just want to make sure I looked like I thought I did.
We have with us today our Senator Dave Miramant. And also joining us is our state representative, Valli Geiger.
So that's our entire state delegation, right?
That's
For
right.
Rockland.
That's it.
Right.
For Rockland,
Yeah,
these are our representatives in the legislature.
And
So
normally,
this is a chance, by the way, if you have a question as we go along, to call in 593-0013, and that little light will flash, and we'll be able to answer. And yeah, you could try that just to get a word in
I'll
edgewise.
ask you a hard one.
All right.
Right.
But
And
we do love to hear from
so,
listeners and viewers. Yes.
Actually, I had invited Dave on and Valli on to talk about the state budget and all the other boring things.
Yes.
However, something else has come up in the meantime, which I think is far more interesting. And I
had
think
nothing to do with this. Okay.
Yes, I know. And I think it's far more topical for our listeners. And I want to show everybody that's watching on TV this.
Oh my God, what's he doing now?
Can you see that?
No, there
It
you go.
is.
Craig is trying to tell you you're doing something
All
wrong.
right.
Well, there you
Can
go.
everybody see that man holding up the
That looks like
the
Dave Miramant.
protest sign?
That's right.
80% of
Americans support
Americans.
abortion in all or most cases.
Yes, I think.
Right.
And that was a Gallup poll from 2020 or 21.
Well, then we have nothing to worry about
Well, you would
because
think that, huh?
because
Except
80% of
a
Americans
court
ought to be
that's
able to
so out of
legislate
touch.
the right to abortion,
Right.
wouldn't you say?
But,
And certainly in Maine, nobody's proposing to outlaw abortion. Is that
They
true?
most certainly are.
Well, I'm sure they are.
We
but
voted down 5 bills on abortion
okay, all right.
restrictions.
And how did they go? What were the votes? What were the votes like?
They were almost unanimous on the Republican side for it,
Really?
and almost, I think, completely against it on the House side on the Democrats.
Oh, really?
And the Independents.
It's
The
always party
Republicans in
lines.
the party lines.
Party
But
lines.
it's so, to me, it's so
Yeah, you can't take this for
insane.
granted.
And I'm talking about both Republicans and Democrats. Why would an issue like this, which is really a moral issue, why would it be a party thing? Why is it a party thing? And so many things, like whether to wear a mask or not, so many things have become this party division in America. What is happening? Don't people have their own minds?
No, lots of theories, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to nail that down.
Well,
I'm not going to respond to that.
Coincidentally, the sign was funny because as I got out of the subway going over to the court,
Yes.
there are just piles of young people, mostly young women, heading for the court to do this. And it's going to go on for days. And it reminded me of 50 years before when I was in high school and I was going to Boston and going to marches against the war and to help the environment and stuff. But I mean, it's just like, oh, we're still at it. And so I walked into the crowd and I said, I didn't bring a sign. Could I use yours to send something back home? And there's this group of 4 women, and they're like, sure. And they hand me one, and it says, I hate men. I go, I don't think I'll use that one. What's yours say? I said, this is good. Information is better.
Right.
They
Did you have your tie-dyed T-shirt and your bell-bottom pants?
No, I was wearing my Quechua backpack, so I got some orange and blue, but the best I could do.
All right. I'd like to start out by asking both of you some questions that would try to clarify the subject for perhaps a lot of people that have heard things, but they're really not sure where all the players are and that. A lot of people, everybody's heard about Roe versus Wade. Some people may not know what that ruling was and what it means. And now that this is being reversed, what does that mean to the people? So
I want to put a picture in people's head,
start.
though, and then you answer, because I bet you can do very well with that one. Put a picture in your head. If you haven't seen it, think of Dirty Dancing, the movie Dirty Dancing. Yes, there's the love story going on, but remember, a lot of it is the young woman dancer who Patrick Swayze's partner, who goes through an abortion and almost dies, and the woman star there, her dad is a doctor, and he deals with that, and she almost dies. If you know that movie, you've seen what was going on before Roe versus Wade opened things up. This is what was happening to young people who were pregnant, feared a lot of retaliation by parents, family, society, and then so much so that when they went and got an abortion, they died, almost died, were wounded for life, physically and emotionally.
The other movie, too, was In the Heat of the Night. I was thinking
Very good.
That was another one that was even probably more poignant.
And so, Valli, if you talk about what it all meant,
Sure.
with that picture in your head, folks.
Yeah. So what it means now is we have 50 years of settled law that said women had a right to choose. Women were in control of their own reproductive life. And now we're having a promise that by June, that will not be true, that it will be up to each state, that 13 states have already got trigger laws in place, that the moment that Supreme Court decision comes out, it becomes law in their state to not allow abortion. Many of those are draconian. It's not about viability. It's about from conception or from 6 weeks before you even know you're pregnant. As the only female here, and somebody who was in college in those early 70s, and as a young adult, I can't tell you the fear about getting pregnant. I can't tell you how much you lived with that every month, and what a difference it made to know that you had the ability to use contraception, that there was family planning, that you didn't require your family doctor's permission. Because I might remind you, when I was in my 20s, if you weren't going to go to a family planning clinic, of which there weren't that many, you had to go to your family doctor, and it was up to him whether he chose to give you contraception or not. So it was a huge deal to have access to contraception, reliable contraception, and it was a huge deal to know that if it failed, you had the ability to get an early, safe, and legal abortion. All of that's up for question now, all of it. Not just abortion, but contraception is the next thing on their agenda. There's already a movement to say IUDs happen after contraception, therefore they need to be illegal. So we are facing, to me, just an unbelievable. I can't believe that in 2022, the young women who are friends or girlfriends of my son, who's 27, 28, the world has just shifted under their feet. Now, if you're affluent, this will never be a problem. You don't think those senators and representatives' daughters are going to have unwanted children? They're not going to end up with 8 children, 12 children like my grandmother, 12 children like my great-grandmother. They'll always have options. But for people without options, this is, to me, it's It's beyond belief. Women controlling their reproductive choices allows them education, allows them work, allows them to leave abusive marriages. This eliminates all kinds of life choices, not just whether or not you carry a pregnancy to term.
Well, I guess we should say, though, that this decision has not officially been made.
That's right.
Right?
Well, first of all, it hasn't officially been made, although who knows? I don't know. And it is very this leak of the draft is very disturbing to me, because
Not to me.
That's because you believe, and by the way, Valli, I want to say your argument, your statement of your own experience was very compelling, and I am not someone who believes that abortion should be a crime or illegal, okay? But just trying to look at it from not a purely partisan, purely evil versus good, okay, and think about it. The reality is, if that sign you were holding is correct, that 80% of the American people feel that abortion should be legal, okay, and the Supreme Court is not coming up with a decision that says that abortion must be illegal, not at all, okay? They are saying it's up to our democracy to decide how we want to deal with that. And as a lawyer, I would just point out that the judiciary is supposed to be independent and not be bullied and pressured, okay, by political bullying, all right? It's enough that we have that in the legislature. So on the one hand, I am sorry to see this happening. On the other hand, as a lawyer, I believe that it is up to the members of the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution, and I never understood the clarity of the right to an abortion in the Constitution, okay? I think it was always a difficult question.
So you're saying we should use a document from the 1780s as our guide for evermore into the future?
You're saying that the Constitution should be ignored now
I'm
because
saying
it's
a
so
living
old?
document,
Well,
not a dead one.
It's a living
Women
document.
didn't have a
only,
right to vote then either, and neither
That's
did
right.
black
But
people. Only
the
white
Supreme Court did not-
property owners could vote.
Yes, I understand, but the Supreme Court did not give the vote to women, okay? The people gave the vote to women, okay? Our democracy has evolved because it's been competent, and I'm a little bit concerned that we're getting to a point where it's incompetent. Because we've been so divided so that you're on one side or the other side and you can't discuss something rationally. You have to, and I just think it's super dangerous and not a good thing.
And I think it's super dangerous that the majority of legislators
Yes.
and the majority of the Supreme Court
Yes.
and the majority of the Senate are men who are making a decision about women's bodies. When you've got a 50% judiciary and a 50% legislature, we can have that conversation. But that's not where we are right
This
now.
also, what it's done, and it's dragged, and that's part of the Republican Party for the
Yes.
last 20-something years,
Yes.
is to drag the religious right in and then have to listen to them, even when those moderate Republicans who used to be predominating used to have a voice. Now they don't. If they don't speak up with the furthest right, religious right of the party, then they'll be attacked and put down. If
And
those
they'll lose the
people,
primary.
right? And if you want to, I believe in the separation of church and state, and I believe you can believe whatever you want. You can go to church 6 times a day. Just don't drag it into making laws for people. And you want to protect children, you want to protect women who get pregnant, then you should be out there working for universal health care that's paid, free education that's paid for through college, contraception to prevent
Sex
it.
education.
But if they want to keep the baby then, because they don't want to derail their life, they can go to college, they can have medical, they can keep being a part of society with the baby, not be pushed into a choice based on religion that says, you can't do this because I believe you're killing something. Well, I believe there's Martians that descend on me every day, and I teach them what they need to know for when Elon gets there. But I'm not going to force you to believe it, and I'm not going to make policy in the Senate in Maine based on my beliefs about Martians. Leave it at home.
But I think it's a little extreme. Do you think that abortion should be allowed right up to a natural birth when the child could be dropped off a bridge like
That's
the
been
Romans?
settled law.
limits.
It's
That's just-
viability.
So but then, that's the question. I mean, I'm perfectly content with that, Valli. I'm not arguing that shouldn't be the line. but it's just it's a debate that is in the discussion that we have to have. It's a rational discussion, okay? And there are questions, as viability, of course, who decides that? It's not so clear that everybody is evil or everybody is good on one side or the other. And one of the things that hasn't happened in all of this time, I'm remembering just recently reading an article, and it quoted Bill Clinton. And I think he said something like, abortion should be free, legal, and rare. Okay? That was what Bill Clinton said. And I think that there's a lot of room to be trying to find ways to make it possible, what you were saying, for women who are considering abortion because they don't know how they're going to survive, okay, to have a way, okay. I've thought for a long time that we need to change our adoption laws because we tend to tell women who would give the child up for adoption that she has to agree that she will have no contact with the child and she won't know her child. And I don't think that that's necessary.
We don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore?
No, we don't hide the records and things.
Hide the records.
Yeah,
so
you can look it up.
So certainly that's a good thing, and it would be a good thing if there was a clear way that could be done. So I think there are just a lot of constructive ways to try to deal with it, without starting to put chalk signs on our senator's house or whatever and burn things and threaten things and so on.
Cry me a river.
Well, that's it. So it's all right.
Sorry.
Violence is okay too. That's okay. No, it's so important that
violence is okay at all.
No.
I live my life the very opposite way. But I am saying Susan Collins is supposed to be pro-choice. She voted in 3 clearly anti-choice Supreme Court, 2 of them illegitimately. And now we have a decision that is not based on representational democracy.
And how would you feel, Valli, if people were putting chalk on your house? Would you say, cry me a tear, No big deal. It is a bad thing that people who are our legislators, you and Susan Collins, yes.
Well, let's talk about Susan Collins for a moment, because the article that I just showed you, Dave, what was the lady's name?
Maine, Karen Luthi.
Karen Luthi, do you know?
I don't know the story.
Don't know.
What's
She
the story?
wrote an article in the Courier about Susan. Was Susan duped, or was she trying to dupe us that she didn't know what was going on?
Right. She's either not very smart or she's duping.
Well, this is the thing I would like to clarify for myself, because I don't understand a lot of this, and that is that you're talking about the politicizing of the Supreme Court now, which seems to have been going on for a while now. Mm-hmm. Them, as they say, they're stacking the court with people they want in there. And there have been very controversial decisions in the last 2 or 3 Supreme Court justices. And the one that she's talking about, that Susan Collins was supposedly duped. Now, which one was that? Was that Kavanaugh? All right.
Kavanaugh and Barrett. Both. She said that's the opposite of what they told me.
Oh, all right.
Right. So according to this editorial that this lady wrote, she said that there were overwhelming calls from people in the state of Maine, people that Susan Collins represents, that had called her up and written to her and said, hey, listen.
So, Steve, 15 women elected officials from Maine, and I was one of them, flew down to Washington to try and meet with Susan Collins. Her office never answered our multiple phone calls. We called Senator Angus King. He called back in 3 minutes, gave us an hour and a half of his time, brought in all his policy and interns, and we had a conversation for 90 minutes. We get to Susan Collins after multiple phone calls, refused to give us an appointment. We went to her office. She begrudgingly allowed 15 minutes with a junior staffer, and then we were threatened with arrest if we didn't leave her office. So in terms of who represents Maine, who's willing to engage with their constituents, who's willing to engage with other elected officials who have an opinion about this, it was pretty clear to me.
Well, I don't know that that's entirely fair, Valli, because, and I don't know all the details, but you're a group of angry women Democrats who want to go and talk to her in Washington, and I think it's very
group that shared her pro-choice feelings.
Well, I mean,
who
I know
shared
this
her
argument,
pro-choice
but
feelings.
you're saying she doesn't have pro-choice feelings, that she's lying to us.
I'm saying
or else
she
she's an
isn't
idiot.
voting it.
But she's not an idiot, so you're saying she's lying, okay? So, and I don't know, it's just, to me, it's kind of heavy kind of politics. I think that we need to respect each other more and not have this kind of blood politics. It's not good. Cry me a tear,
we were
but I don't like
dependent
it,
on
okay?
her. People voted for her because she was pro-choice.
Right. So what's really going on here? I guess is the question. You know, do you have
She's had to
too
move
much
to
money
the
in
right.
politics.
She's
Too
had
much
to move
money.
to the right in order to maintain a position, to maintain her position among the party and how she's seen. I don't think she is over there, but I think that's now how she's voting.
Do you think you'd mentioned money?
Yeah.
You know,
How
this
many
was mentioned in
millions
this
does it run? Have to run?
fundraising from the Freedom Alliance or whoever it
And
was.
Democrats are not going to give her the money, so she has to pander to the right, hard right.
Well, don't both sides have to pander now? Isn't that what's going on? Isn't that why
No,
there's
when,
no
I don't
it's
think
people
the
that
hard
I want,
left
they're
have
not
money.
pandering. They're
What's that?
respectfully asking for money.
That's right.
Depends on whether I agree with
On
them or
one
not.
side they're pandering, and on the other side they're
Exactly.
respectfully asking for money. Yeah.
So
right.
don't
You're on
interject.
the listening to the Rockland Metro show, and if you hadn't noticed, we're talking about abortion rights, and we're talking with Senator Dave Miramant and State Representative Valli Geiger. We want to take this opportunity to allow anyone that would like to join in on this conversation to give us a call, and we'd be glad to answer your call at 593-0013. And you know, I wanted to continue our discussion with how is it that the Supreme Court becomes so politicized so that you actually have members of the court changing years-old verdicts.
You want to take that, Dave?
We can take that. How are they doing that? Well, when you have someone like Trump in there, then he's looking for people that are going to support his ability to get reelected, because I don't know why he works so hard at it, because he doesn't believe that he lost anyway, but he appoints people to make sure that he can win at the next election, and that is not going to be the Democrats again, and I don't know where the independents are nationally. In Maine, they tend to lean left more than right, even though we have this broad middle. It seems that's the way it goes. So he's got to pander, since he's a Republican, to the folks that can give him a lot of money, and by making appointments of their folks that they want in, that's part of what he does. That's part of what they all do, like Susan
Who
Collins.
raised more money in the last presidential election, Biden or Trump?
No idea.
I think we're forgetting
Biden
some
did
history,
quite
however.
a bit more.
Senator Mitch McConnell
I was just going to bring that up.
refused to allow a
true.
hearing
Yeah.
a year before Obama's term was completed for a Supreme Court justice, and said it was too soon. You know, a year from the election is too soon. He successfully prevented a vote. They got in, waited until President Trump was elected. He got to choose Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. And then, what was it? A few weeks before the next election, Justice Barrett was confirmed. And all of a sudden, all those old rules were like, it's like Charlie and the football, you know?
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell was Lucy. Whatever works for our side, we will break every rule, every norm, everything that's gone in the past to get our way, and they were successful.
So wait a minute, are you saying
three
that that's your
Supreme
rule,
Court
or
justices.
that's the Republicans' rule?
I would
seems to
say
me
it
it's a
was a
rule on
norm
both
that we
sides right now.
always gave a
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
to a Supreme Court justice.
I don't defend Mitch McConnell. I was very unhappy with that. I think that was very wrong. But then the question is, so what do you do? Well, now you're in power, so you say, well, they did that, so we can do it. They killed the Jews, so we can kill the whatever. You know, I mean, I think that we have to maintain, we can't just use as an excuse for our behavior now that people that on the other party behaved badly in the past. I do think that was very wrong for Mitch McConnell to do that. But there it is.
It's very hard to have a political system where one side does not follow any rules or norms, and there is nothing to make them, and yet you're asking the other side to continue those rules and norms. We now have a situation where we have, a 6-3 Supreme Court?
Yeah,
well, it looks like we've got a phone call, so let's see who's
finish that statement
with us here. This is the
It's
Metro
all right.
Show.
Don't stop for them. They get excited. Now they know there's one person listening to the show finally.
Hello. Hey, we've got a caller.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello, hi, Rita from Rockland, and I'd like to speak with, I'm interested in Valli Geiger's take. We in this household follow Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator from Rhode Island, and he has, past several years, discussed, in Washington, the dark money donors, and some of them are foreign entities that have donated to the Supreme Court to get their way in certain rulings. And the three choices that the ex-president had chosen wasn't really chosen by him. He was given a list, and Kavanaugh wasn't even on that list. But and that was, and also Mitch McConnell, some of the GOP, all in on it. Okay, a captured court. Okay, with all these conservative right-wingers on it, so this way they could do away with women's rights, abortion rights, and health care, Planned Parenthood, also birth control, condoms. If you get rid of condoms, you're going to have like a society with a lot of cases of venereal diseases being spread. Women in college, they depend on their going to Planned Parenthood. Also, when that right is taken away, okay, and it has been taken away to a lot of the red states, and they're getting away with it because the red states are run, a lot of the red states, their whole legislature is Republican.
And your question for Valli is?
Oh, yeah, I want to know, does she agree with that these were chosen by the Federalist Society, and and you have chosen by a minority, okay, holding these views when the majority of the country wants Roe to stay settled. I mean, I fought this battle years ago. I can't believe that we're still here.
Thank you so much, Rita.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we'll try to answer that.
Well, I agree with Rita. It was definitely, they were chosen by the Federalists. It's the only justices the Republicans are bringing up now have a very strict constitution as a dead, stagnant document that must be followed. If you've read Alito's opinion, it's all about you can't find abortion in the Constitution, therefore there's no right to it. And all the other amendments, right to privacy, right to illegal search and seizure, they're going to be taking your phone if you keep your contraception, your menstrual cycle on it to keep track of you to see if you got pregnant, so they know if you went out of state, because they can track that on your phone, whether you had an abortion or not, and they can press charges. I mean, we are in a whole new world.
You're saying that the Constitution is they're throwing out the Constitution now. There's no First Amendment, Second Amendment, etc. That's all gone because of Roe v. Wade.
I'm saying they're selective about the amendments and how they apply them in order to get the outcome that they want for women.
I find that really that their motivation is to hurt women, okay? And that
their motivation is to increase the number of white babies.
Look, the reality, I was just reading it, it's going to increase the number of black babies, okay? That's the reality, okay? That's who's going to be most affected. So why in the heck are they doing that, okay? I just don't... this idea that these members of the Supreme Court, they're all evil, they're paid for by foreign dark money, and they're, that's going too far, okay? You would ask, Steve, what about innovation in the Supreme Court and changes and overturning precedents, okay? Roe v. Wade itself is that, okay? So these things have come and gone in different ways. When FDR started his New Deal, okay, a lot of it was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and there was discussion about adding to the Supreme Court so that you could get a majority of people who would go along with these New Deal things, right? I mean, you remember that. And it wasn't that long ago that Democrats were having that discussion, too, about the Supreme Court. Maybe we need to add judges, right? Wasn't that being discussed?
You just wandered all over the place. Back to
yes.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
There's some expectation that this large group of people who are called lawyers,
yes,
who have pretty shady or less than great reputations, I know, are suddenly much better when they get to the Supreme Court by methods that are, suddenly they have this integrity and all this stuff.
Okay.
Where are we going with that one?
All right.
Train
because they're lawyers, they should not be trusted.
They're going to be the same at this end and at that end. It doesn't matter if they get a guaranteed job for life with a black robe or not. They're still the same.
Should we do away with the whole judicial thing and just have
society isn't demanding
and
that
not
we
have
away
an independent
proportion.
Judiciary? Is that what we should do now?
Amount of people are saying it, but society has moved in the direction that we want society to take what should be a living document with us, and that's to expand the rights for people to have a choice over their body. And I mean that about whatever goes on with your body.
I was never an opponent of it. I was always perfectly happy with it.
You're playing a game here.
Yes, he
is.
This
is 50 years of settled law. The majority of Americans don't want to see that law changed. This is a small number of very focused people who have finally, after years, successfully gotten very conservative, anti-abortion justices on the Supreme Court so that they can overturn something that the majority of Americans want. And the fact that it's 5 Catholics that are making this decision brings the whole question of the separation of church and state into question. Right. Mm-hmm. They're imposing their own religious beliefs on an entire population.
Be allowed on the Supreme Court?
I think they should not use their religion and impose it on American women.
I don't think you'll find in this decision any reference to the Catholic Church, okay? And I'm arguing with you guys not because I favor making abortion illegal, okay, but because I fear that we're it seems like willing to just abandon all of our tradition, all of our democracy, everything, just, we're going to march in the streets, we're going to take over like the French Revolution, okay? No, we have to build, not destroy our democratic institutions. We have to have trust in them. And if 80% of the people want abortion to be legal, then I don't see how, if we have a political system that works at all, which is our job, okay? Well, then, but you're in the legislature, so if you feel that way that it doesn't work at all, then why are you even bothering to do it?
Because you have to try.
Well, all right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. You're listening to the Rockland Metro show.
No, it's good to try.
Yeah, I don't think it's for the money.
Yeah. I don't think you're doing it for the money.
What is it? 9,000 one year and 13,000 the next?
Yeah. I just
our guests today on the Metro show are Dave Miramant, state senator, and also State Representative Valli Geiger. Steve Carroll and my co-host Joe Steinberger, the lawyer.
One of the reputable and honest ones. I will put after my pointing that out.
So we should get rid of all the lawyers, right?
Well, wasn't that a song?
Well, that's been said for a long time.
No, I think what Dave said was that they're like anybody else, that to make some assumption that because they ascend to the Supreme Court, all of a sudden they suddenly become, the saints of the country. They get to decide unelected for life, and they get to pass the decisions.
So as you said, Dave, that sign you had, 80% of the public.
It's not going to help those 13 states.
It's not going to help the Republicans.
That pass the weirdest stuff.
So let's just...
How can the
But Maine
Republicans
has,
get away
if you
with
get,
it
if
if
you're
their
on
constituents are against it?
Maine Care, that we stopped letting Maine Care deal with women's health care with federal funds because it had restrictions on talking about birth control and about abortion as an option. So we pay for Maine Care women's health care with our own funds now so that they can't be restricted, so that you can't censor what they can learn about something that affects their bodies. Does this remind you of anything recent?
Well, now this is something the federal government was doing.
Right.
You're saying.
That's why we
Well,
stopped
not the
taking
Supreme
their
Court
funds.
doing it. It was the
I'm
federal
saying
government. Yes.
Some weird stuff happens when
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
in government, and in fact, in Augusta, we just ended with a whole bunch of stuff that it's like people would get up and make a speech, and they would throw out 5 erroneous things. If we vote for this, this will happen, this won't happen, this will happen, this won't happen, this won't. And you're going, none of that's true. But they put it out there, and enough people reinforced it, and they believed it, and now these people are voting that way. I mean, it's amazing. And in Maine, it's not money, as we've said many times, not money that gets in the way. It's apathy. It's having to work a real job so that you can afford to be in the legislature, so you don't have time to do the job thoroughly for at least a third of those folks up there, things like that.
I want to take a moment to thank both of you for the generous gift that you've given to the people of the state of Maine. And when am I getting my $850 check?
Yeah, June, man.
June.
We're buying your votes in June.
June.
And let
is
me
it an
just
election
say,
year?
since we're on the radio, that this is due to any adult Mainer, and in order to receive it, you have to have filed a tax return. You don't have to pay taxes, but you need to have filed a tax return so that Maine can find you. So if you have not, if your income is too low to file taxes, please go to the public library. They will give you I think it's the 2040 EZ form. Very easy to fill out. You've got till October to send it in, and then you too will get that refund. And I would hate to see anybody who is eligible not get it because we don't know how to find you.
Right.
And you just have to file the Maine one too.
That's right.
And
Just
we
the
have a
Maine one, not the
website
federal one.
about that will tell you. And I didn't know if the website was going to give them some option to fill in something so they'd be identified.
I think they hope to do that. I don't know if they'll.
So we're working on
figure
it.
it out.
So now,
I
just
will
to be
hold everybody
clear,
else's $850 check until we can find you.
Yes. Okay. Well,
I
thank
told
you.
them I would do that.
Thank you very much. That's very generous of you. Now, can you clarify also that this is not new money? This is money that was in the state slush fund? Or?
No, this is new money.
New money. The thing that's going
No,
on.
new money. I think of understanding each other. I mean, the state doesn't print money. This is not money that the federal government, you could say they're printing money and just doing it that way, but the state can't. So this money came from taxes, right?
Right. Or wherever,
So
maybe printing it in Washington, but they
we're not
shipped us so
borrowing.
much money.
We are not borrowing.
Right.
Not
They
borrowing.
gave us so much money to
I
pay for
see.
things that we were able to pay for all kinds of things we
right,
normally would have needed. We're having
Right.
we're getting a lot of money from
Well, yeah.
taxes right now because the economy is booming. After it's like a backlash, boom, and so we're getting a lot of money. But it wouldn't look very big if they hadn't given us hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars
From
to
the
pay
federal
for this
government
and
too.
that and this and
Okay,
that.
and you
And
found
we've done that. So
and you
now,
found a better way to use that money, which is to give it to the people of Maine. I
Half
think
of it
that's
back.
a very, very good idea. Well, I was a supporter of Andrew Yang and guaranteed annual income,
Yep.
and I think it's a great thing to do. And both federal government has done it, and now the state government.
we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to take the time that we have left to talk about a couple other issues that I know are close to both of your hearts, and that is the environment. And one question I want to have for you, Valli, because you've been working on school state funding, and I saw a story a month or so ago where the state was giving RSU 13 $350,000 to buy an electric bus.
Nice.
Okay. Now, the story also said that they would be giving electric buses to other school districts. Now, if each one of these school buses costs $350,000, and by the way, they also mentioned in this story that a brand new school bus, just a regular one that burns fossil fuel, costs $109,000.
Okay.
Brand new. Okay. My question to you, Valli, is if we've got all of this money to buy electric school buses, why don't we take that money and give it to the schools?
Dave, feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, well,
I would say it's a different pot of money for one thing.
Yeah.
It's coming outside the education department and the state's subsidy of education. It's probably coming from federal funds to help foster getting off fossil fuel. I don't have the math in front of me, so I'm interested. I got gas today, and it was $4.41 on the highway. It's supposed to go higher, so at $5 a gallon. And a bus that should last, if it's an electric bus, they're much less complicated than a gas bus, should last years and years and years. How soon does that 300 start to look like a deal? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't have a pen and paper right there.
There's another argument for it, too, which is that this is an investment in a future, okay? It's not just about these buses, it's about giving this a chance to work. And I would say, see, I've been skeptical about electric cars. I think that people are too quick to think that it's an easy solution because it's not so easy. It's hard to store that much in batteries, and it takes time to charge them. But school buses are a perfect vehicle to be electric because you run it for a couple hours in the morning and you can plug it in all during the school day, and you run it again. You can charge it up all night. So it really does make a lot of sense to try to use electricity. And if it costs a bit of money to learn, how to do it, I think it's, to me, I think it's reasonable.
She said the maintenance part, but you're always, in these arguments, they ignore the cost of carbon pollution, where our soil is contaminated, our air is poisoned. We now have numerous friends that we know that have cancer and other diseases that are like, oh, we don't know what caused it. Well, how about poison food? How about poison air? How about poison water? Pick something. And most of our pollution comes from our transportation. So, as you said, the bus is a perfect platform. Semi-trucks are perfect platforms. They have lots of room to carry batteries. Mm-hmm. Batteries are right on the edge of becoming
it depends on what you're doing what you're doing with the vehicle. If you're trying to drive someplace all day long, okay, still electric is hard.
It is because Elon Musk's primary idea was, yes, we'll do all this, and you can charge it at home from your solar panels or my solar farm.
You can at home, but then
you go down
the road, you're not at home.
You don't stop to pull, unless you want to. You could stop and plug it in. But it was supposed to be all along all the interstates. You're going to drive your Tesla into completely automatic, because everything about that is. You drove in, it would check your battery, give you credit for your battery. You keep driving, it unhooks your battery, it hooks the new one on, and you drive out in 2 minutes.
Doable. Yeah.
And
but we're not there yet.
No, we're not there.
Well, he backed off on it to try to get them out. But
it's also huge to build, even for Elon Musk.
Well, and as you said, that's why the school bus is the right place to start. We have to start building the infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about transportation and the effect that transportation has on the environment. Well, I'm seeing very little movement within the state or the federal government for electric trolleys or public transportation.
I want to see that. If we could have an electric trolley from Thomaston, Rockland, Rockport, Camden,
like we used to 100 years ago, you mean?
And it's quite doable in an hour, each way. It could just go back and forth. It would be so wonderful.
Well, didn't you tell me, Joe, that in Zurich they have those? And have them
in many places in Europe, they're still using. In Geneva is what I was talking about. They have a whole system of electric trolleys, trains. They're not old-fashioned trolleys. They move right along. They're modern and they're very effective. And
the other thing that I heard also was that China has developed these metro buses. These these big downtown metro buses that are all electric.
Well, that and their high-speed rail. I mean,
high-speed rail.
It's all electric high-speed rail, and So you can get places, downtowns, almost as quick as going to the airport. And, they show all the time that point to point, downtown New York to downtown D.C., you can do in the same time as going to the airport and flying and get back downtown.
Yeah.
But China, the thing is, when you have no environmental regulations, you can do anything you want to your people. They said, oh, fast rail, we want it everywhere tomorrow. So they just took
There's no
out
such
villages
thing as property
and
rights,
destroyed the environment.
Planning.
So in 10 years, there's high-speed rail everywhere. There in October
my
of 20.
understanding, over in
unreal.
California, from Los Angeles to San Francisco, there's a high-speed rail system to connect those two cities that's been in progress now for the
That's
last
right.
20 years that they haven't even got halfway done yet.
Because we're not that country. We're a country that is still arguing about whether we need to do this, and none of that applies to Maine. Maine is a rural state, and we're never going to have public transportation that can fully take the place of a car
So
or
are we ever
some
going to
other.
get rid of
if people-
Chevy pickup trucks? I mean,
There'll be
Well, but also the
Ford
fact
trucks
is
either,
that
yeah.
Rockland, very much as it is today, was lived in by people who didn't have cars. Okay,
Right.
and I think it's quite possible. We did, the last time we had the show, we had a difference of opinion of whether out on Talbot Avenue there, where they want to build the new housing, was far from town or close to town. It's obviously something in the middle, but it's I looked it up. It's about a little less than a mile, okay, from the center of town. But what we could be doing in Rockland is try, as people did, is to live in town and be able to walk.
And by the way,
they
Valli,
got smaller lots, that would help, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, and we don't have much time now, but we.
And by the way, Valli,
Yes.
Susan Beebe and Rodney Lynch will be on the Metro show on the
good.
25th of May. So, I saw her today, and she's agreed to come on.
Well, you and Rodney ought to agree on everything, right?
Well, I don't know. What does Rodney think about the Firefly Field? Is he on
He's very
Susan's
much
side?
against it.
And I'm not at all. I'm for. I mean, I always thought this is nonsense. But I know that Susan's motivation is
Pure.
genuine. Okay,
Yes.
but I think she's wrong. But it would be great to get together another time and talk about housing, because
It's a subject we rarely ever talk about.
well, we talked about it, but it really is, to me, so
Critical. It's
important.
foundational to everything.
Yeah, you need a house to live in, and it's
Yes.
getting harder and harder for people.
Yes.
And the percentage of people's income that they have to spend on housing is going up and up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
And there's no future for Rockland if we don't create
I totally
working
agree.
class
I
and
totally
middle class
agree.
housing.
We have
Right.
to have housing that people can afford.
Every
Young
day.
people who would like to come here and
Yeah.
start their career.
Well, and
People
businesses
can't find a
that
place
need
to live.
employers.
people,
All calling us.
yeah, absolutely.
What can you do about this? Create a community with immigrants from other places where their worst day here is better than the best day they live where they came from. What color are they? That's the first question. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's another whole thing. But the issue of housing, it does have to do. I mean, it really is a fundamental thing. It's been a problem for a very long time. It comes and goes, sometimes better, sometimes worse. I read a book called The Cost of Shelter that was written like 150 years ago, and it was a big issue. It has to do with the fact that a few people own the land, right? That's so it's a fundamental problem with private ownership of the earth. And how to, so now I'm being a leftist radical, right? How to deal with this and find a balance, okay? So that would be a great thing to talk about. It's just so sad to see people struggling to have a roof over their head.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
Dave, you just returned from Washington.
Yes.
Notice that I'm switching subjects.
That's all right.
Okay. You just returned from Washington. You said you were meeting with the Marine...
Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, which
Right.
is the only reason we have any fish left in the ocean, because if it was left up to the Marine Resources Committee of the state, then they would vote to let people take every last fish and then go, oh, I'm surprised.
The last several times that I've been down to Hannaford,
he had to turn it into politics.
I see farm raised, and that's all I'm seeing.
Not all you're seeing.
No. If you go to Hannaford's, look at the fish, or go to.
But there's a lot of it. You're right,
farm-raised.
And it's not great. It's not great. It's like they just identify stuff. It's a protein. You grow it. There's
farm-raised fish is a problem.
Yeah.
What would be really great in Maine, though, is to do more with farm-raised seaweed and shellfish, because you're not feeding it. You're just giving it a place to live, and it's very, very sound. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question in the few minutes that we have left that was asked to me, because I run into some fishermen, lobster fishermen, every once in a while. Strangely enough, in this area, there are a few.
Yes.
And my understanding is that the federal government, who is doing extremely well handing out money, and for any purpose at all, is giving the lobstermen a whole bunch of cash.
Really?
Yes, and Dave could maybe elaborate on this. My understanding is it is to help the lobster fishermen with the costs incurred on this whole Save the Whale thing.
Okay, so it's not a federal program; it's a state program, and so we had.
That's a state program.
Yes, we had in our committee. Now there's some federal money coming too, but they might be mixing up the two. We had a bill come that would give $3 million to fishing folks who are incurring extra costs because of having to change lines. We also had another one for about that same amount of money for a legal defense fund. We changed that so that what they pay in to a couple different sources will go to their legal defense, but no general fund money. The $3 million, when the sponsor got to the committee, said, "Oh, that's a typo. It's $30 million." But it was that time of the season. Hence the reason why the ASMFC is a good thing we have them, 13 states working together to protect the fish. So the one state who's fishing most of something, like stripers, comes in and says, "Oh, no, everything's good, even though we're going to fish them to the last. It's good for us." And the other 12 states go, "No, you're not." And we say no. And so they come, and the committee votes the $30 million in. Well, there's only $12 million for each caucus, the Senate Dems, the Senate Republicans, the House Dems, House Republicans. Only $12 million in each caucus. And there was over like $1.2 billion in bills on the table. You send that $30 million bill to the table, and that $30 million bill is going to sit on the table. So there was that. There's some money coming to help, but that's getting distributed by DMR according to some rules that were set up that we're still trying to refine. So there's some help, but not the $30 million that was.
So the thing that I was curious about is if the federal government didn't put on all these useless regulations to save
who cares about the whales?
The whales, but there are no whales.
There's about 475 right whales left, and every time.
So last time a whale was hooked on a fishing line was like 12 years ago.
Well, I fought for them because of that. Otherwise, I would have said no. If we had any proof that there'd been a whale snagged in the Gulf of Maine, then we would have done something. And now we're going to
Bigelow Labs had a lecture on the right whale that I went to just because I wanted to understand this. And they were pretty clear that what's happening is that the food stuff that the right whales eat is migrating north to colder water because climate change is making our water too warm. The whales are following. We had worked out this whole way to avoid ship strikes when we knew their path, but that path has changed, so they're getting hit by ships, and we've lost over 150 just in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
So it really has
You're saying
nothing
that
to
these
do with the
rules
lobster
about
man.
lobster fishing really aren't doing any good?
Within 3 miles, absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Further out,
Yeah, I don't know.
almost nothing, or probably nothing. It's not
But
almost,
we have
probably
no
nothing.
control over Canada, which is where the right whales are going. And so
They
I don't know
are
what they're
getting
thinking. You know, better to do something than nothing. But
That was the problem.
there's no evidence. There's no
Yeah.
science behind
Right.
that decision.
Because now they'll
Which
say
is why
we did
we've got a
something.
bipartisan Senate and House and the governor, both sides. You'll be happy to hear this. Everybody's on the side of the lobster fishermen saying there is no science to justify
Of course,
those kinds of
it
onerous
is true
rules.
that the lobster fishermen have more votes in the legislature than
Right.
the right
And
whales.
Dave, when Paul LePage comes on as our new governor next term, I'm sure all of this will change.
Well,
and on that note,
oh,
I
okay.
want
I'll bring in
All right.
some of his
Hey,
notes that he wrote
yeah,
me
yeah.
when he was
Hey, I
governor.
just,
They're
Steve,
really
I'd like to
literate
get the
and
last word
intelligent.
here.
right.
Oh, wait a minute.
would
No, they aren't.
very much like to thank Valli.
Yeah, not Dave.
Yeah, the only woman on this to discuss
Yeah.
Good
abortion,
work.
may I
And, but
say.
you were the power
Yes.
of 10.
And
I mean,
Dave.
you were amazing.
For joining us, knowing that this is a difficult place to be. So I appreciate it very much, and I hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you both. This is so much fun.
yes, hope to see you again.
Oh, I know.